Hi everyone, welcome to the first DEI in gaming event in Asia Pacific. We're very excited to have you all here with us. DEI stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are business imperatives for Google. Today, we want to explore with you, the gaming community, how to embrace and nurture DEI and build more diverse, equitable, and inclusive gaming ecosystem here in the Asia Pacific. We want to convince you that DEI is not just a good to have, but a business fundamental and frankly a competitive advantage. And in case you're already convinced, well, great. We hope that this event gives you enough data points and conviction to convince the rest of the stakeholders back in your teams and back at home. So here's what agenda for the event looks like. In our agenda, we first have the keynote address, which explores the need and the opportunity to bring DEI into our organizations. The next session elucidates on this opportunity by zeroing in on the women gamer audience, which is growing faster and actually has a higher engagement. And you can imagine then higher IAPs or ad revenue example than its male counterparts. It seems to be a more profitable group almost. After that, we would move on to the how. How can we build for diverse audiences? Gaming studios and industry experts discuss what can be done, what are the challenges, as well as the benefits to be expected during this exercise. So I'm personally really looking forward to that panel discussion. On that note, um, for the keynote address now, please welcome Ping Huang, Managing Director of the Asia Pacific Online Partnerships Group. Over to you, Ping.
Thank you, Ishita. Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be here today to discuss this topic with you all. I always had this perception that games are for boys. The turning point for me came at the beginning of 2018 when I hope you guys still remember when Travel Frog, a mobile game developed by Hitpoint in Japan, had gone viral. I naturally became a player because all of my female friends were playing the same game. And it was the first time I saw so many female players in one game. Actually, there were 30 million downloads just within a few weeks, and women accounted for half of those players. Fast forward 3 years later, a most recent event further changed my perception on the industry. The event had three companies: Mattel 163 from China, Lion from Japan, and Google. I was quite surprised and excited to see many female leaders in those companies, which brought me hope. And I'm hopeful that we can change the game by building a DEI culture in this industry. But what is DEI, anyways? The best definition I've recently heard is this: diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being asked to the dance, and belonging is dancing like no one is watching. I guess we're all invited to this party today, which is a good starting point. So let's take a look at some data. There's no doubt that today's business environment has become much more dynamic. What made us successful yesterday will look differently tomorrow. A recent BCG research found a correlation between diversity and a company's ability to reinvent itself. Our own Google study in 2020 also reveals that one, diversity helps to create new revenue streams, and two, diversity driven companies made 14% higher share of revenue from new products that they released. So, what's the size of the prize for all of us? The global gaming industry is estimated to grow to $175 billion this year. To put the number into perspective, the TV sets to be sold in 2021 will reach $122 billion. So our gaming industry is actually surpassing where entertainment is traditionally consumed via TV. What about APAC in this picture? APAC represents 48% of the global gaming business, which is about $88 billion this year. Let's further zoom into the mobile gaming part. In APAC, mobile gaming amounts to $57 billion this year. I'm sure many of us also want to understand how fast it's going to be growing in the next few years. In APAC, mobile game revenue is expected to grow to $74 billion just in 3 years. And this growth will bring a diversity opportunity in the gaming industry because we'll see additional cohorts of people playing games. With the more diverse user base, we have opportunities to create better engagement with those users. And speaking of the users, I shared my perceptions at the beginning of the talk, and then let's take a look at the broader perception. Well, this is the broader perception. It may sound pretty familiar that people think most players are male, the content and then the community are male friendly, and then the developers who create those games are mostly male. And there are actually three interlocking problems here: the audience, the game itself, and the developers. This creates a vicious circle of underrepresentation. Think about this: the less people see themselves represented in the sector, the less likely people will play the game or apply for jobs. Okay, enough about perceptions. What is the reality? There's good news in the reality because the gaming industry is shifting. Now, 49% of mobile gamers are already women. However, there's always a however. Within that 49%, 60% of them think that only 30% or even fewer games are made for women. When we look at popular games on Google Play, out of the top 100 grossing games, male characters are featured in their app icons 44% more often than female characters. The last piece is to look at the developers. The profile of the global gaming industry looks like this: only 27% are women, transgenders, or other people. This imbalanced representation is being felt by players. So, in our survey, only 23% of women and 40% of men believing there is equal opportunity for all in the gaming industry. So, back to the Travel Frog game I mentioned, the developer who created the game was a woman. I guess that explains. As you can see, there's definitely an opportunity here in untapped markets by thinking of the range of people who may play your game. So, what should we do next? Coming back to the APAC growth opportunity we saw earlier, would love to ponder together how fast the growth will be if we all start to nurture a more inclusive industry. It can start from any one in the three pillars: the games, the players, or from your own organization. Now more than ever, we have the opportunity to get this right. A diverse and inclusive environment can make you more innovative, more profitable, and more likely to retain and attract talents. So let's partner closely to change the game together. Over to you, Frederica, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ping. Hi, everyone. I'm Frederica from SEA OPG team, managing gaming apps. I'm really excited to be here today and to expand on what Ping just shared, specifically focusing on sharing the huge opportunities that DI brings to the gaming business. I still remember vividly, actually, the first game that I played growing up, which is Harvest Moon on PlayStation 1. And also, similarly to Pink, I had the impressions that games are for boys, because in Harvest Moon, the character that was first introduced is boy. So this was 25 plus years ago, and the perception still remains to be dominant to this day. So if we come back to the this graph that Ping also mentioned earlier on, we know that games have always traditionally been targeted towards men, with women being largely underrepresented. However, this approach is now outdated, and targeting in this way is likely to mean that the gaming companies are missing out on the great numbers of potential customers, as well as a more diverse workforce that can come and join the developers team, which will often lead to innovations and new ideas. Now, let's take a look at the data a little bit deeper in each of these three pillars. So the first one, which is the audience, if we look at our latest data with New You, it shows that women are now playing more than ever, especially if we look specifically at mobile gamers. Women already make half of it at 49%. Mobile gaming has indeed made it possible to reach a wider audience and offer different gaming experiences. In fact, our data also shows that women prefer mobile phones over other gaming platforms. What's more interesting is the fact that female mobile gamers, also spend more time playing than their male counterparts. Our data shows that 43% of females play 5 times per week or more, and this for the male counterparts is only at 38%. These interesting users' behaviors are key for all of us developers here to explore further and uncover new monetization opportunities and strategies. If we zoom in a little bit to our APAC region, we also see this global trend following. Now we see a significant percentage of female players, which is standing at an impressive 40% in the various countries or regions within APAC. Importantly, for Asia, for APAC, if we were to look forward to the future growth, we see that the growth of female gamers is actually faster than that of the male counterparts. 14% year-over-year growth is expected for female gamers versus only 7% for male. Now, the fact that more female gamers are rising should be a compelling enough reason to include more characters that everyone can relate to. While many respondents felt that the gaming industry is improving in terms of representation in general, the majority at 54% still feel that games could and should be more diverse and inclusive. Additionally, a substantial share of respondents, around 47%, said that they sometimes avoid playing certain games just because they felt that the games weren't made for them. Newzoo data also shows that 60% of these women who play games think that 30% or even fewer mobile games are indeed made for them. What's more is that 77% of female gamers have actually experienced discriminatory treatment just because of their gender when playing games online. So this data shows that we, as a gaming community, have a long road ahead to enhance our content and take into account the various nuances of the games created to be as inclusive as possible. The last part of this diversity puzzle is definitely the team that make the games itself. Currently, we see that people in the gaming industry are heavily staffed by male, and our data shows that only 27% of the developers are not the male majority. As such, this can often create an environment of inequality, with our data showing 60% of female who work in the gaming industry often don't receive equal treatment and opportunity. From our own recent first-party data from a senior leadership event where we invited a total of C-levels from leading gaming companies, there's only 16% that are female and only 8% of the CEOs are indeed female. So if we were to improve on this pillar, we believe that the games created will be more likely to attract wider audiences and more likely also to convert them into fans or members of the games community. This is because a more diverse development and publishing team will bring a wider variety of perspectives and experiences to the table. This all could in turn create more genuine characters and games that would benefit developers and gaming ecosystem concurrently. So if we really look back into this graph, we see that the reality now is that everyone plays games, but the other two pillars, which are the content or the games and the developers, are still work in progress. This is a lost opportunity currently, but together we could and should build a better environment for the future gaming communities. We can envision a future to be an ideal state where everyone plays inclusive games made by a diverse team of developers. If we can begin to truly tackle diversity issues from the game to the developers or the team, it could in turn lead to fostering better engagement among audiences and make the most out of monetization opportunities in the process. It is going to be a win-win for everyone in this gaming ecosystem, and we really hope to take this journey together with you. Thank you so much, and now Ishita will take you to what we all can do today.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be back. What I want to take you through is that now that we can understand that there is an untapped opportunity for building for diverse markets. And when we say diverse markets, we mean all markets. It's for us, gender is something where data was easily available. So it was a good starting point. But diversity could be geographical, cultural, or even neurodiversity as well, right? So once we understand that there's an untapped opportunity in this space, the question is where to begin, right? So that's what we want to focus on now with my session and the panel that follows after. What I want to discuss about in particular is our data shows that building more inclusive games uh, is directly correlated to growing a diverse team. So the best way to build an inclusive product seems to be a diverse team. And that's really cool, right? Because you already have a first step as a team. Um, so now you may wonder, how do we create a diverse team, right? And that's a fair enough question on how do we, can I have the next slide, please? How do we create a diverse team? Which is essentially, we believe that the best way to create a diverse team is actually the first step is to recognize that there's a bias, right? That despite our best intentions, and even though we genuinely, truly are obviously good people, so it's not like we want to be racist or we want to be sexist or we want to exclude neurodiverse people. Uh, but we, as, we do have a bias and we need to recognize them. For example, for example, multiple studies show that when the name is the same in a STEM resume versus when it's changed from male sounding to female sounding, the candidate is less likely to get a call back, less likely to be offered a mentorship, and offered 10 to 20% lesser salary. So the 80 cents to a dollar figure, right? Which is incredibly interesting. So honestly, it starts with training on various cognitive biases within your teams. This is a good place to incorporate DI in your company culture, and such trainings are honestly easily available online for free, right? Post this groundwork, the next steps are, and diversity becomes a function of three things essentially after this, which is diversity of applicants, interview process, work culture. Notice that the focus is on the number of applicants and not the number of hires. right? And why is that? That's because there's actually often a pushback that focusing on hiring diverse people would somehow lower the bar. But here you see that the goal is to increase the size and the diversity of the candidate pool. So just increase probabilities for yourself. So it's honestly a great business proposition to work on the top of the funnel. Combined with the robust process, this is likely to increase the probability of finding an overall better, not just more diverse candidate. Right? So all we need you to goal on is top of the funnel in order to explore this beautiful opportunity that we're talking about. Next slide, please. Right? So how to increase the top of the funnel? Well, turns out less the bullet points on your job description, uh, the more likely you're to get female candidates, which is really cool. Um, on that note, it's better to aim for unbiased languages. There are tools out there, free tools like joblint.com or like Textio, which essentially spell check your job descriptions for biases, be it race or gender, or sexuality, or even neurodiversity, right? So it makes sense to have a look at that. That's a free way to do this. Also, another free way for you is if you just mention that you're an equal opportunity workspace in your hiring communications, you increase your applicant funnel by 15%. And these are usually diverse candidates. So again, it's a win-win. Also, one thing is that we may over-rely sometimes on referrals. And while referrals are a great source of quality candidates, um, you are more likely to know people that went to the same college, that stayed in the same quote unquote affluent neighborhood. Right? So referrals may kind of increase diversity issues within the team. To combat this, it's important to post in diverse and identity specific forums. Like, for example, at Women in Gaming on Twitter. This again is completely no investment way, and it also creates positive buzz around your brand, right? That you are actively trying to look for diverse candidates. So like everything, that's a win-win. But of course, hiring the right people is not enough. Hiring diverse people is not enough. Not only, or even having the right amount of applicant pool structure is not enough if it's not followed by an inclusive interview process, where you, for example, accommodate the interviewer's accessibility needs, or you want to do a blind test where you actually give them an at-home assignment, for example, coding assignment at home without knowing their name. It's a surprise statistically how much that helps increase the number of women coders in a team. So yeah, so do that. Have multiple rounds of interviews to kind of work out bias. At least that's what we, in my experience, has worked personally, right? And lastly, create an inclusive culture of psychological safety where differences are not only tolerated but celebrated. So, for example, allyship circles, groups. For example, there is a neurodivergent group within the place I work, right? So if I want to talk to other neurodivergent people, there is a forum within my company that gives that, which essentially means I'll express my difference. And when I express my difference, I'll be more comfortable bringing in my unique way of thinking on the table when the decision's being made. And which essentially again means better products for everyone, better games for everyone, because you're getting more ideas. And when is that bad? Right? Like Ping was mentioning that it increases innovation. So not only would the focus on an inclusive work culture improve employee retention, it also ensures that team members do not hesitate in bringing their unique, perhaps out of the box insights on the discussion table, right? And now I want to move on to a different thing, which is that while a diverse team and an inclusive culture are vital ingredients to creating diverse games, they're not the only ones. But I could only speak from my own experience when I have to present this, right? So now I'm going to move to the panel discussion. And what the panel discussion is going to focus on is not just this part that I discussed, but it's because they have more experience in game economics, game loops, game design, feature accessibilities. So they would kind of talk on those bit of the things and give you a first-hand perspective. So let me now invite our panel to give a first-hand perspective on these topics. To introduce and moderate the panel, please welcome KJ Shin, country head of OPG in Korea. So a Googler who's going to be moderating the panel. Over to you, KJ.
Thank you, Ishita. Hi, everyone. This is KJ greeting from Seoul, Korea. I'm currently looking after online partnership group in Korea and leading gaming business globally on the publisher side. I'm super excited about having this opportunity together with the panelists across different functions and geographies to talk about DEI in practice. We will also learn about what it means for stakeholders across the game industry in Asia Pacific. From today's session, we want to get holistic viewpoints on three things. First, what diversity, equity, and inclusion means to our existing developer ecosystem. Second, how are leading studios currently leveraging this opportunity? And third, what can we learn from their experiences when it comes to building diverse games and teams? All right, on that note, let me move on to our first question. Here, I would like to request each one of the panel to please introduce yourself and give us your take on DEI in gaming. We have 4 panelists today, and we can go with Ella, Shruti, Pauline, and Sharon in this order. So hand over to Ella first.
Hi there, thanks KJ. Yeah, so I'm Ella. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Mighty Kingdom. We're based in Adelaide in Australia, and we've got 130 developers in all across Australia, some in New Zealand as well. We traditionally, or sort of historically, have made mobile games mostly for the kids market, mostly for young girls, with partnerships with toy companies. And we also do console development and casual mobile games for with a focus on older female audiences as well. That I think has really driven a lot of how we think about diversity, both in terms of our audience, but also how we want to build the studio. I think Philip Mays, our managing director and founder, has a really strong vision for the type of company he wants to build and to work at. And that really guides everything we do, from, like I say, our audience to our hiring practices to where we source our candidates from, and just guiding our culture as well.
Cool. Next, we're going to move to Shruti.
Hi, I'm Shruti. I'm the co-founder of Blacklight Games. We are a gaming startup based out of India, and we're focused on building culturally relevant social multiplayer games. The most popular game that we have is Ludo Superstar. The game is played by over 14 million users every month. Regarding DEI, I feel that organizations with diverse team where people feel included and everyone has equal opportunity and fair access and everyone gets fair treatment would undoubtedly provide a platform to their employees where they can grow more, they can be more creative, and they can be more productive as well. And definitely organization would see better results also. And very specifically in gaming, a lot of innovation is required, and more diverse the workforce who's working on the game is, more ideas would pour in, and more colorful, flavorful the game would be. And such a product would be well received by variety of audiences as well. So having a diverse workforce is very, very important.
Cool. Thanks for sharing, Shruti. Okay, next we are moving on to Pauline.
Hi, everyone. Hi, I'm Pauline, leading the culture and people piece in Storms. So in Storms, our mission is to build an inclusive gaming ecosystem where players around the world can be entertained and connected with quality games powered by our social instant gaming page and distribution partners. Yeah. So we're actually focusing on hyper casual games that can be enjoyed by people of all ages, thanks to their easy to play nature. Yeah. And on diversity at Storms, I would say our hiring approach focuses on the culture add instead of culture feed. We want to go beyond the comfort zone of seeking to hire and retain talents whose qualities are already working for our organization or who fit into our culture currently. Now, the ability to attract diverse talents who don't just fit into the company's current stage of growth, but who are adaptable and agile, who can grow with the company at the different stages. So be it from early stage 0 phase to the stage 3 and 4 expansion phase will be critical, especially for an early stage startup like Storms. Yeah. And I think on this front, right, I would say remote working or flexible working arrangements is going to be key to enable diversity within a workforce. And Storms ourselves, right, we've been able to expand our team beyond borders. And it's just exciting to see how people of different cultural backgrounds, they're able to come together to share their ideas on how we can serve players better. Yeah, and I think behind all this, on equity inclusion piece, right, is to have a culture, to build a culture where everyone feels safe to express themselves, where they can contribute their ideas and they're able to strive. And I think it all kind of starts from the leadership team. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Pauline, for sharing. I think especially I like the idea of the culture add versus culture fit. I think both are equally important. And this is also our team in Google is also very much interested in to explore, because I think that's the way that we can kind of have a diverse team and then much better talents pool for our teams. So thank you for sharing. Let me move on to the last panelist, Sharon.
Hey, thanks. Thank you. So, hey, I'm Sharon Tulsiani. I'm based here in India, and I take care of games partnerships for Google Play for India, Australia, and New Zealand. I've been in the gaming industries for coming up to 2 decades, and it's been an interesting space to see evolve, especially in not just the demographic that has, demographic shifts in people who play games, but also those who build games. I'm lucky enough to be in an organization like Google that often prides itself on being on the forefront of diversity, equity, and inclusive work. And I personally spend a lot of my time thinking about and working on aspects of neurodiversity and how even larger organizations or smaller teams can take advantage of that, make workspaces more comfortable. And I think especially in the gaming industry, we have an opportunity to, the gaming businesses coming from a non-conformist culture at some level, to be hopefully someday the model industry that celebrates as much breadth of diversity and brings that to the next generation of users that we're building for. So, yeah, that's it for me, and we can kick off the panel.
Sure. Thanks for sharing, Sharon. Just one quick follow-up question, Sharon. Working in Google Play side, you probably observing and working with many different developers. So is there any kind of trend on the DEI side that you are observing right now?
Oh, that's a good question. First of all, thank you for, starting off, being the first panelist to answer the question always makes me a little nervous. So I'm going to take a second, but I think that, looking at the trends, right, let's say the last few years, let's first address the bad, right? It's been known for a while, I think, and it comes out in the press very often, especially with larger companies, that a lot of work cultures have not been diversity friendly. We're talking across the board, right? So it's not only with the female workforce, but with LGBTQ+, recognition and understanding of um, uh, those who are differently abled and how to work with that. So clearly, the gaming industry does, in especially larger, super large funded companies, may see this frat boy culture as it is reported in the press. And there's a lot of work that is being done and hopefully will continue being done by people here and ourselves wherever we can to change it at different levels, right? Whether it's at the platform level, whether it's at how companies are funded outside by investors, but also, of course, by the indies and those who are building their own orgs to hope that the structure and the culture they build right now continues on as they grow from being 10 million to 100 million to billion-dollar companies. In trends, I can speak about India for one. We definitely see a increase, slow and steady, but an increase in founders who come from, even within the culture of India, from different subsections of society. I mean, economic privilege, for example, is something that's often not addressed as part of diversity, but in really complicated, highly populated countries like India, the differences in economic opportunity do lead to different life experiences and different privilege. And we see some of that breaking down. Of course, we see more and more women founders leading successful companies. Shruti has been one of the clear sort of beacons and lighthouses that inspire the next generation of women. And hopefully, as we go forward, we're going to see game developers, I suspect, recognizing that their users are younger, recognizing that those who promote their games on YouTube, content creators, streamers, so on and so forth, are more representative of the broader LGBTQ conversation and culture, that gender and identity, complexity and fluidity, perhaps, hopefully, will be more accepted and more part of the work culture, so that these companies, and if I were to put a selfish spin on it, so that these companies can build for those users and generate the revenue from that, if that is the aspect of the argument that it requires. And I see that being recognized more and more in Indian gaming companies, where traditionally, and I'm sure Shruti will agree, the talent seems to be homogeneous at one level. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that. But interesting study. Before I just go, we've seen this study come out of Britain a short while ago, where while they recognize that 28% of the 3,500 gaming companies that were registered were women, say 2% non-binary, 10% did come from Black and minority ethnic communities and growing, right? But what was interesting was the 21% identified as LGBTQ plus groups. However, in that country, only 3 to 7% of the overall population identified as LGBTQ plus. So one could say that that is an encouraging trend for the gaming industry.
Super helpful. Thank you so much, Sharon. Great to hear that we are making a lot of progress. And as you said, that hopefully this event could also contribute a bit more so that we can accelerate further. All right, so let me move on slightly to a different question of building inclusive game theme. So the question number 2 to the panelists is, what can a developer or a studio do if they want to build more diverse audiences? Okay, we can go with Shruti first for this question.
Sure, Keita. So when you're building for diverse audience, you can definitely start from adding different characters in the game. However, that would not be all. That's just probably the beginning. What's important is that the entire experience that your game offers makes the player feel, get a sense of belongingness. They shouldn't feel that they were an afterthought. They should feel that the game was made for them. And every studio, when they are, starting with a game, they should ask 2 questions. Who is the audience, and what is the audience looking for in their game? And the answers to these questions should go into game planning, game designing, game mechanics, communication, and most importantly, the game experience. At Blacklight, we do a number of things and to make sure that we are catering to diverse audience. Like, we do understand that different people play for a different reason. Some people are playing to compete, some people play to relax, some play to stimulate their brain. So we have different modes in the game for different moods. We have a computer mode where you can just have a relaxed experience. We have a live match where it's very, very competitive. You're against a real player. Then we have a blitz mode, which is like a brain exercise. We support a lot of languages, but at the same time, we ensure that we use very little text, and the emphasis is on using images and animations to communicate with the users. And we do localize our games as per the geography of the players as much as possible. Also, while designing game mechanics, we should understand that not every player has a similar level of digital literacy. So game mechanics should be intuitive. We should keep them as straightforward as possible. And for games like ours, which are social in nature, it's very crucial that a player not only feels that the game was made for them, but they also feel welcomed by the other players who are playing the game, since they would be interacting with them. And as game creators, it's our responsibility to create a fun and safe community inside and even outside the game, so that all the players, regardless of their gender, regardless of their sexual preferences, regardless of their backgrounds, regardless of everything, they have a pleasant experience.
All right, that's very, very helpful. Thank you, Shruti. Now, let me turn it over to Ella for your perspective on the building the diverse audiences.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, really great insight from Shruti. I think at Mighty Kingdom, we tend to, in the last couple of years, our focus has really been on narrative-heavy, casual mobile titles. So our two sort of biggest titles in that area have been Wildlife Puzzle Story and Abe's Manor, which is a solitaire narrative decoration game. So I think from there, like, we have a really strong understanding, and I guess we have the benefit of having an understanding of who our users are, and we've identified them very clearly with, all of the quantitative and qualitative data that you use when you make a game as being older women. I think that for us has always been kind of a natural extension of our history as being a company that makes but has tended to partner with toy companies making branded content for toys, which tend to be for girls, for young girls. So we really had the benefit of we've never had to, or we've had the luxury rather of never having to, I guess, make the argument internally that this is the market that we should be chasing. It's been a natural extension. And that means that everyone on our team, and this is kind of a cheat, but everyone on our team is aware of the fact that that's who we're building for. The other thing, and this is, I think we're going to talk a bit about this later, but we have a diverse team that's building that content for that audience. I would say we don't really match them in age, but we do have a really a very heavily gender diverse team and a lot of other diversity in that way, which we've sort of built into the studio. But that sort of, I think, allows us to, I always preach, and we should be doing this as designers anyway, but to really empathize with our audience. That's something that we really kind of push internally, is to understand who they are and what they want, but also what's going to feel authentic and what's going to be an exciting story for them. I think one thing that we really did early on was recognize that we were building basically a soap opera, and I think that there's a bit of a mental pushback from a narrative designer, and that sort of feels like I guess it's not like prestige content, right? But for me, that's always been about, this is what our audience wants. Who are we to say that they shouldn't enjoy that? I think for us as game designers, it's about us understanding how to cater to our audience once we've identified it, rather than saying, hey, you should actually like this. Because on one hand, that's just good business sense, but on the other hand, I think it's a bit it's kind of arrogant of us to say anything else, to be honest. So we do a lot of that, and then that means that we have really strong voices on our team who are able to sort of put their hand up when they feel like something is sort of going either side of, maybe it's not being as inclusive as we as a company would want to be. I think that we sort of tie in those values as a company. Everyone who joins the company understands that this is what these are our goals and these are our values, and we have a really strong culture, and we work really hard to keep the culture of, speak truth to power, for lack of a better term, to call it out when it's not being practiced. And then we try and also, if we're working with partners and things like that, we're obviously limited if we're working with someone else's brand, but we try and, we want to communicate with them and take them on a journey, but we use a lot of, audience data to inform those decisions as well, and we can sort of push the boundaries a little bit and show, hey, the audience actually really responded really well to these art tests or this narrative test or something like that. So it's a bit of a combination of setting ourselves up for success, but then also really holding ourselves accountable to the internal work that we can control, and then also being, I guess, leaders in that space when we're working with partners as well.
Cool. Thank you, Ella. That's very insightful. I really love the idea of holding everybody accountable on cultural level and value level. Everyone in your team is aligned. I think that kind of strengths actually lead to kind of building more diverse audiences and the case on their day-to-day lives. So very, very helpful. Thank you. So let me move to the last theme of this panel session, which is the building the diverse team. And our third question here is, attracting and retaining diverse candidates can often be a challenge, right? So in your experiences, what do you think can make it easier? So that's a question, and I would go with Pauline for this question.
Sure. Thanks, KJ. So I think first and foremost, right, in Storms, right, we have formalized flexible working arrangements, and I think that's really half the battle want. Having a work from anywhere policy, even post-pandemic, definitely helps to attract and retain diverse candidates with differing needs, who may be at different stages of their life, from, say, caring for young children to aged parents, and who may be just based anywhere in the world, literally. And I think this is actually a very effective, extremely effective employee value proposition, whereby Storms may actually have lost some of these talented female candidates, done hires, if not for Storms' former work from anywhere policy. And I guess this explains why Storms, right, our makeup is overall, in terms of female diversity, is at a strong 43% company-wide, and our leadership team is made up of 57% females. So I think this is really very different, from a lot of the gaming industry out there, yeah? And just to expand a little further on this flexibility at Storms, right, accorded to all employees is especially important during this period. We have team members who needed to return to their hometowns due to family matters, and this work from anywhere policy actually allowed them to spend time with their families, most of whom they've not seen in about 1.5 years' time since the pandemic started. And these Stormers were still able to contribute their best, and at the same time, be able to spend quality time with their loved ones. And I think underlying this work from anywhere policy, for this to really work, right, it's an effective, robust, level up performance management program that we have in Storms, where there are clear OKRs set by each Stormer in consultation with their lead. And ultimately, it's about quality deliverables in a timely manner. Yeah, and I think this work from anywhere policy formalized, it helps us to attract and retain a lot of very talented employees. Yeah, and it's really I would say a business imperative to have diverse talents, and this allows the team to be able to see things from a broader perspective.
Cool. I think thanks for sharing some of the tips, especially the flexible working model. And I believe even as you said, like a post-pandemic, that will be really, really useful tips for us to retain good talents and diverse talents for our team. Okay, maybe this time turn it over to Sharon. I also wanted to hear from your point of view on this. From a culture perspective, what do you think is the most important one?
No, thank you. That's a question that's an interesting one. Look, I'm sort of very feeling more humble than I did before I came into this call, because I'm hearing so many leaders speak about how they build team culture, and it's sort of a very obvious reason here that this is why you build more diverse teams, because then that allows you to take real strong calls right at the top that work for a broader group of people, as what Pauline was talking about in terms of what they've implemented, or Ella was talking about when they have built out for their broader user base. It's something that you don't see very often. So speaking about what can be done in culture, I think a lot of great stuff has been said. I can speak to what I feel had the largest impact in teams and orgs that I've seen in startups that I work with, and that is really about allyship. It's something that I have been able to anchor myself to in my own sort of journey to understand how I can bring value to organizations, and while I sort of struggle to understand my own neurodiversity and the odd intersection that exists, because there's so much intersectionality with privilege in these places. And so one tends to ask oneself, what can I do? I think often thinking about and building diverse teams, leaders get stuck in a loop of the specifics of who they need to build for. And this often can lead to them moving away from sort of real diversity and inclusion to these sort of paper programs that look good on documentation, right? And this is not going to, I believe, give the result that especially smaller teams need. It often pushes a problem down the road that explodes, as we've seen with some of the big global gaming companies today. It wasn't that anybody went in saying, yeah, let's not do this. It was often programs on paper that didn't have the result. And I think a lot of that is, in my opinion, the lack of allyship as a culture being built in. And I think that's the important one. As Pauline said, hiring is not enough. It's about enabling and empowering, and especially creating a place of being able to empower other people, but also feeling empowered and safe, especially psychological safety. Allyship as a culture of an org must be built consciously, as it applies to founders of companies, leaders, people in power within the organization, but also every individual in the workplace. Everybody has the ability to be an ally, especially if they have their own privilege, because privilege itself is often intersectional in other ways to some aspects of a lack of it, so that people can use that empathy, right? So able-bodied people can be allies of those with different abilities. Economically privileged can be those allies of those without privilege, and so on and so forth. And devs and publishers, I think, working on building that answer can do a couple of things, right? They can look at building cultures where they address inner and outer team dynamics, right? Things about in groups and out groups. These are often things that we see cause failures of allyship within organizations. Empower their teams, and if you're building a team, empower your team to come to you and address microaggressions, right? Address situations that builds this significant negativity, like a culture where there's death by 1,000 cuts, almost, in terms of loss of confidence, comfort, and productivity. Allyship also allows you to build out cultures that actively cultivate inclusive environments, but most importantly, are about listening, supporting, reflecting on yourself, and changing. So that, for me, is somebody like myself or a lot of people in gaming companies can start from there. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much for sharing on the allyship culture. That's very, very helpful. So let me ask the last question to our panelist group. So what's the one thing you would like to give to the audience so that DEI can be more practical? So probably you can give just one sentence or a 10-second answer could be very, very helpful so that audience can take this as a gift from the session. Let me go with the Ella first.
Thanks, KJ. So I will, 10 seconds, one sentence is going to be very hard for me, but I will say the thing that we always get pushback on when we talk about these types of things, I think a lot of people have experienced this, is the concept of, sure, diversity is important, but you want to hire the best person for the job. I would really encourage everybody to think about what that means, because if we all recognize that a diverse environment results in A, better business, but B, happier, better employees, which again leads to better business, we want to improve our businesses, then a diverse candidate that you invest in to reach their full potential and create that environment to help them is the best person for that role. So don't look at the person they are today, look at the person they can be and the value add that they're going to give your environment and your team.
Awesome. So thank you, Ella, and moving on to Pauline.
Yeah, hi. So I think ultimately for this to work, the leadership team needs to speak the same language. Yeah, we need to believe that DEI is indeed important. It's indeed a business imperative that helps the business to speak to more diverse customers. And I think ultimately when it starts from the top, the culture that embraces DEI will definitely be very prevalent throughout the entire organization. So I think that to me is probably my 10 seconds kind of tip to the others. Yeah.
That's a really, really powerful statement. Thank you, Pauline. And our last call to Shruti.
Thanks, KJ. I'll have something to add for our fellow game developers. So I would say that when you're developing a game for a variety of audience, try to empathize with them. Don't assume that you would be playing your game. You do not represent your players. So test your assumptions very objectively using a lot of data before you push anything to market. So never say that, okay, I'm liking what I've made, so I'm just going to push it live. No, you do not represent your players. You have a variety of players there, make your cohorts, test what you have taught, and then only go live.
All right, very, very cool. So its time is up, so let me wrap up the session. And I think audience, hope our conversation was helpful who joined this session. So I would like to conclude the panel with a huge thank you all of our panelists for sharing their really valuable experiences and learning with us. Thank you all. And over to you, Ishita.
Thank you. Thank you so much, KJ, for leading the panel and the discussion for us. That was incredibly amazing. This was just incredible to hear, specifically the one last sentence that came from all three of you, Ella, Pauline, and Shruti, really just hit the nail on the head. The fact that diversity is not just good to have, you need to give it a shot and actually really, truly transforms your business. And the fact that diversity is a data-driven common sense thing now. And if you were to truly look at your data, like Shruti said, and test your hypothesis, you will automatically build more inclusive games. So thanks a ton for that. It is now time to wrap up. And time to close today's incredibly insightful event. You would soon receive a post-event survey from our team. We request you to please fill that in. You would probably also see it in the QR code on the page that you are. This feedback would help us design follow-up events as well as localized versions of today's session.